Not all parents deserve children, but all children deserve parents. This is a true life story of a forgotten, abandoned child who got a life he deserved because a stranger, kinder than his birth parents, made a quiet decision. In a small-town hospital lay a baby no one wanted, a baby who never cried, because he already knew no one would come. But when a young volunteer stepped in, she set off a chain of events no one could have predicted. What did she discover, and what she chose to do next? Listen to today's real story until the end to find out. Please do subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and also let us know where you're listening from. In the quiet town of Brookhaven, Ohio, the halls of Maplewood General Hospital echoed with the hum of routine. The click of shoes on polished floors, murmurs between staff, and the rustle of medical charts created a dull rhythm that rarely made space for emotion. Tucked away at the far end of the pediatric ward was a door that few ever opened. Behind it, in a dimly lit room, lay a tiny baby boy, abandoned, silent, and almost invisible to the world. His name wasn't known, but the nurses called him the orphan case. Too weak to cry, his lips were cracked, his limbs barely moved, and his eyes, wide and strangely still, seemed to carry the weight of someone far older. He was one of the refused, babies left behind with no one to claim them. No one came to visit, no one called him by name. Rachel Monroe had never been inside a hospital like this before. Young, idealistic, and newly recruited as a volunteer, she walked into Maplewood with a nervous energy and a determined heart. She had come seeking purpose, a chance to do something meaningful, but nothing could prepare her for what she was about to discover. She met the stern head nurse, Janet Thompson, who gave Rachel a list of duties and a warning: don't bother with the refuse cases. That's not your place. But Rachel was haunted by that word, refuse. At the end of her shift, curiosity pulled her toward the closed door at the end of the ward. She pushed it open slowly and saw him, a baby, impossibly small, clutching the corner of a thin blanket with fragile fingers. She knelt beside his crib and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. The image of the baby stayed in her mind, his eyes full of silence and sorrow. The next morning, she returned early and slipped into the room again. This time, the bottle of formula lay on the floor untouched. His blanket was bunched at his feet. The signs of neglect broke her heart. She brought a clean bottle from home, gently fed him, and cleaned his face with tissues from her purse. For the first time, his eyes followed her. Something small and precious sparked in that room: hope. Rachel began spending every spare moment with the baby. She named him Eli. Slowly, he responded. His cheeks filled out, his eyes brightened, and he started to move with the clumsy curiosity of a growing infant. He smiled, once, then again, and each time, Rachel felt her own heart stretch with fierce, protective love. But peace didn't last. One afternoon, as Rachel walked past the staff room, she heard voices. Dr. Martin Reynolds, the department head, was speaking with Nurse Thompson. "We need to transfer the refused cases. Red Oak Children's Center can take them. We're not a nursery." "Some of them won't survive that place," Janet said quietly. "Especially Eli." Rachel's stomach turned. That night, she confronted them both. "He's just starting to live. You can't send him away," she said, tears of rage burning her eyes. "Rachel, we have protocols," Dr. Reynolds replied. "You've done enough." "Not yet," she said. "If you won't save him, I will." Rachel went home and stayed up until dawn, researching adoption laws, calling charities, writing emails. She found a list of organizations that help children like Eli. The next day, she made calls, dozens of them. Some people hung up. Others said it was impossible. But one woman, Carla Jennings from a nonprofit, listened. "Your story touched me," Carla said. "Give us a few days. We'll try to find a family." Rachel clung to those words. In the meantime, she kept caring for Eli like he was her own. She brought toys, clean clothes, warm bottles. She whispered lullabies until he slept and promised him, "You will not be left again." 3 days later, the phone rang. "We found a couple," Carla said. "They're coming tomorrow." Rachel's hands trembled. She should have been happy, but her heart ached. Saying goodbye to Eli would be like giving away a piece of herself. The next day, a kind-looking man and woman walked into the hospital, Ben and Melissa Harper. Rachel watched as they cradled Eli with awe. He looked at them, then turned his gaze back toward Rachel, his eyes filled with confusion. He had known only her gentle hands, her voice, her warmth. Now, suddenly, there were new faces, new scents, and unfamiliar arms reaching for him. Rachel stepped forward slowly, crouched beside him one last time, and placed a soft kiss on his cheek. "Be happy, Eli," she whispered, her voice thick. "I know you will be. You deserve the whole world." She gently placed him into Melissa's arms, who rocked him carefully, as if holding a miracle. Ben wrapped his arm around his wife, and they nodded to Rachel with sincere gratitude. As they turned to leave, Rachel followed them to the exit. She watched the car pull away, holding back sobs that rose from the depths of both joy and heartbreak. The tears spilled over anyway, silent but overwhelming, as the vehicle disappeared into the horizon, carrying with it a tiny piece of her heart. Days passed. Rachel still came to the hospital, but the world seemed quieter without Eli. His room was empty, yet something had changed. One evening, she got a message from Carla Jennings. "If there are other children like Eli, we want to help." Rachel stared at the message. She saw the other babies now, each one forgotten in a crib with barely a name on their chart. Rachel realized that Eli was just one of many, and the thought tore at her. She couldn't save them all. That truth pressed heavily on her chest. But maybe, just maybe, she could save some, and that was reason enough to try. Determined and trembling with emotion, she marched into Dr. Reynolds' office carrying a thick folder packed with research. Inside were lists of charities, contact information for adoption agencies, testimonials from families, proposals for partnership, and grants for pediatric care. Dr. Reynolds looked up from his desk, slightly surprised. Rachel placed the folder in front of him, her fingers pressing into the cover. "We can't save everyone," he said after a moment, glancing at the documents. "But maybe we can save a few." Something shifted in Maplewood General. A quiet wave of compassion began to ripple through the hospital. More volunteers joined, bringing new energy, fresh ideas, and a renewed sense of purpose. Donations began to arrive: blankets, baby formula, toys, even handmade quilts from local church groups. Janet Thompson, once the picture of clinical detachment, gradually changed too. She stopped calling Rachel naive. Instead, she started checking in on the infants herself, lingering longer than necessary after her shifts, sometimes even rocking a baby to sleep before she went home. The pediatric ward, once silent and cold, was now buzzing with quiet laughter, gentle lullabies, and the sound of lives no longer forgotten. The ward grew warmer, not just in temperature, but in spirit. One evening, Rachel passed the infant room and heard a baby crying. She lifted a tiny girl and rocked her gently, whispering, "It's okay, little one. You're safe." She thought of Eli, not with pain anymore, but with purpose. Months later, the hospital had a new playroom, a new system for connecting children with families, and a renewed heart. Dr. Reynolds walked into the room one day and watched the children play. "You were right," he said to Rachel. "We can do better." Rachel smiled, her heart full. That night, she received a photo in her inbox: Eli, sitting on a colorful rug, surrounded by toys, smiling wide and free. His eyes no longer held sorrow. They radiated joy. Rachel stared at the image, tears streaming down her cheeks. She walked out to the courtyard, looked up at the stars, and whispered, "One by one, we will make it." What about you? If you had been in Rachel's shoes, would you have done the same? Or perhaps something even more? Also, what would you like to say to parents who so easily abandon these babies? They deserve a chance at life if they were brought into the world, and such parents need to do better. Please share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your heart, and thank you for listening to Storyline Narratives.